So now we officially start. Today is fully dedicated to Asia. So you are the only one in this meeting today. Tomorrow we will have participants from Eurasia, and on Thursday participants from the Near East only. But of course, if you want to join these other meetings, so tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, you are welcome to join it. The link to join the call is always the same. And then on Friday, we will have the plenary session. So with the 3 regions all together. About today, we will have the opening remarks from our colleagues and friends from Apache. Then we will quickly go through the objectives of the day, and we will start talking about mapping. So we will have an overview of the mapping contributions received to present, and then we talk about harmonization of borders. In 2 hours, approximately in 2 hours, we will have a short break, and then we continue talking about the preparation of the maps and the review of the country profiles that all of you should have received, and hopefully most of you have already sent us a feedback about. So now I would like to start by giving the floor to Dr. Park Jung-yong, Apache Senior Deputy Secretary General of the Apache Secretariat. Dr. Park, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you, I'm sorry. We cannot hear you.
Okay? Okay? Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Park Jong-yoon, Senior Deputy Secretary General. It is my pleasure to have opening remark to celebrate the first additional boarding meeting. This project aims to manage soil resource sustainable and prevent soil erosion. Apache Secretary consider it is a very important project to achieve its goal. I think this workshop is very special to us. For example, the agenda will make us think about how the WRB soil classification can be blended in parts such as research, politics, and problem among countries. During the event, we can discuss and consider this to find a comprehensive solution. Apache Secretary does always pay attention to current issue of agriculture in Asia country to suggest acceptable solution. We all know that there is a promising future only when these solutions are presented. At the same time, the effort of Apache countries provide a foundation for us to take the simple step as our future partner in agriculture. Once again, congratulations on the first additional boarding meeting. We wish this event would be meaningful and memorable. Thank you. Yeah.
Many thanks for your opening remarks, Dr. Jung-yong. It's a pleasure to have you with us as usual. You never let us down, so many thanks. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Arwin Jones, that you know very well by now, that works at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission for the objectives of the day.
Thank you very much, Lucrezia, and indeed a nice welcome to you all. We really appreciate the kind words from the Apache Secretariat just now and welcome, but also we really appreciate also the time you've taken out today to join us in this meeting. I think we are now at the stage of like a giant boulder rolling down a hill, where it was moving very slowly at the beginning, and now the speed of the boulder is increasing. So I think that analogy for the atlas is the same. So we see a lot of activity and a lot of contributions from your side. So today we just really want to take stock of where we are, but with a particular focus on the mapping side of the atlas. Many of you have provided us with the spatial data that will form the core of the atlas, so the map spreads, which we will use. And so the idea of today is really to look at the different contributions in terms of mapping, to understand from your side whether there are still any outstanding issues in terms of the correlation between your national mapping systems and the WRB that we are using in the atlas. And then to look at some border harmonization issues, if there are, and in particular, how we address these by looking at let's say, the underlying reasons for potential differences on both sides. So we will look to see how these can be resolved, or if they can be resolved. We will also look at, let's say, the general look of the data to see in terms of its spatial representation. And then we will look to also specifically on some of the more thematic mapping that we would like to use in the atlas in terms of soil carbon, in terms of salinity, in terms of erosion, pollution, and so on, to see how we can, where we are with progress on these fronts. And then finally, as Lucrezia said, we will look at the country profiles. As you can see, we've taken your suggestions and had to, in many cases, re-edit them to fit the space available. And many of you have sent some feedback and comments in relation to those texts. We can go through those and just to be sure that we understand fully what your intentions are. I should stress, and I will stress it later as well, that we're not going to sort of throw away your valuable contributions if you've already provided us with more material than you see in the country profiles. The idea now is that we will go through again this information that you've sent us to see how we can pick it up in other parts of the atlas where we need also a lot more effort and work. And what you provided so far will be really, really useful in that respect. So I think that's probably all I have to say at this stage. I stress very much, it's a two-way process. We try to interpret what you provide us. We then give it back to you to see if our interpretation is correct, and then let us know if we need to improve or change or redo the contribution. So it's, at least it's coherent with your point of view. So yes, so we have today, as Lucrezia said, a special focus on the Eastern and Southeast Asian part of the atlas, and on the next few days we have the corresponding meetings with Central Asia and the Western Asian countries with a plenary on Friday. I re-stress the invitation of Lucrezia. If you want to follow discussions in other parts, you're more than welcome to do so. And if you think of any item that you want to raise on Friday, feel free to that. We have a rather open agenda, so we can accommodate a fair degree of impromptu discussions the suggestions on Friday morning as well. So you have some days maybe to reflect on what we talk about today and to discuss that if needed on Friday morning. So I think maybe with that, Lucrezia, I give the floor to Kostya to explain a bit about what he's received and where we are, and then maybe we can get some dialogue going between the different contributors and what their remaining issues are in relation to this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Arvin. Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for attending this workshop. I would like to thank specifically all of those countries that worked so much and contributed to this joint effort by providing their WRB maps. To date, we have received the WRB maps from the following countries: Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Mongolia, Myanmar, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Vietnam, India, Japan, Azerbaijan, Palestine, Iraq, Armenia, and Syria. And several other countries are working on their maps and on their correlations. So thank you very much for all of those who contributed. Also, we received just today an updated contribution from Sri Lanka. It will be also added to our data. Right now, I would like to show you on my screen the maps that we have. Can you see my screen? I hope that you do. Sorry, it's stuck due to Zoom. So basically, we have quite a good coverage in Asia, especially from the countries that are supported by the Apache project. So there has been a fantastic contribution from Apache Secretariat to support the countries, and it's been a great success because almost all of them already finished their WRB maps and contributed them. Now all the national contributions we collected together, and we harmonized them in terms of attributes. So now we have a joint shapefile and joint database that I will show you shortly. Yes, where we have the WRB name, we have reference soil group, we have two qualifiers, qualifier 1 that should be almost everywhere, qualifier 2 where appropriate, and supplementary qualifier where appropriate. So this is the data we have now from all the countries. You can see all these maps joined here. We also added the map of Russia to see how borders will work, for example, with Mongolia here. And what we can do now is to observe and analyze how these individual classifications of countries work all together. So we can basically zoom in now to any country. And what we can do is we can just check the classifications across the borders and see how well they are matching. So if we see now, for example, the maps of India and Myanmar, we can check here that we see that on the Indian side of the border, for example, the soil is classified as, we'll see it now on the screen. I'm sorry, my software is quite slow, especially when projecting through Zoom. So it's classified as Kampi Sols district. We see on Myanmar side, it's classified as Kampi Sols Feralik. So we see there is a perfect match in terms of reference soil group, but the qualifiers were chosen a bit differently. So maybe we need to think how to harmonize it a bit, or maybe here, for example, on Myanmar side, we have feral sols, rhodic, while on Indian side, we still have cambisols. So like this, we can examine now all our maps, especially where we have the seamless coverage. In Southeast Asia, we have quite a seamless layer now. And then we can discuss how these classifications can be matched. Yeah, now we can compare also, for example, Thailand with other countries and see how the classifications are matching or there are certain differences. Yeah, I see that there are certain differences across the border. For example, here we are having a slope complex unclassified feature from Thailand, while on the other side we have verticacrysols. So another little issue that maybe we will need to resolve when harmonizing data is that in certain countries we have several areas that are not classified into WRB. The example is here in Thailand, these are slope complexes. Maybe other examples could be mangroves in Bangladesh or rock outcrops that are present in many countries. So we will also need to see how we harmonize this and eventually how we present these areas on the atlas. On the northern part of our continent, we have the map from Mongolia. And since we don't have yet the contribution with China, we put the layers from Russia to see the border matching here. And I think it is quite good. So we can check now also in this case, what do we have across the border? For example, here in Russia, we have this green polygon that is classified as cambisols eutric. And if we see a similar soils on Mongolia side, we will see that exactly the same cambisols eutric. So there is a very good match here. That's what we would like to see in most places eventually after we harmonize them. And if we check these orange layers, these are classified as Umbrisols lactic on Mongolia, and in Russia as Umbrisols molig. So we see there is also a match with reference soil group, but slightly different qualifiers selected. So basically this is what we have, and this is I think a great achievement to have this very good coverage from many countries in Asia with national maps. They are matching pretty well, and the way ahead, as far as I see, is to examine those unclassified soils and those differences in classification that we can observe, so that eventually in the atlas we come up with the single harmonized map for Asia. That would be all for me for this introduction. Yes, Sangho, about the map of Korea, and we will check, but I somehow didn't receive it. So maybe it is somewhere, but yeah, I will certainly add it as soon as I get it. Yeah, the Korean map. Okay, so that's what we have from me now. And Lucrezia, back to you.
Thank you very much, Kostya. So Arwin, we move into the harmonization of borders. We look at issues between countries, especially. Although, well, Kostya, you said that in Asia we don't have many problems, right? In terms of borders, they match. and also the information countries provided match in terms of classification of soil?
Well, as I showed, okay, these should be examined like border by border, case by case. In some cases, they match perfectly, as we saw with Mongolia and Russia in some cases. Sometimes the reference soil groups are matching, but the qualifiers are different. And in certain cases, the classifications are completely different across the border, both reference soil group and the classifier. So I guess this should be examined like case by case, border by border.
Bastian, can I have a question? Is there a list of most commonly occurring mismatches so that I could think about what kind of questions we have to raise to solve the differences at the border?
There is no such list yet because the joint layer was just compiled.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that would be also a way forward to see those mismatches and yeah, to examine them.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe a general question to people then who have provided the data so far. Are we talking about a case where, for example, there were two types of soil, let's say, occurring within a polygon, and let's say a choice has been made for one in particular, or is the data there exclusively on one soil type? Generally, at this level of scale, we tend to recognize a dominant soil and maybe associations as well. I don't know if anybody had any issues in terms of having to choose maybe 50-50 selection between one or two, maybe. So maybe the other boundary, the other soil is shown. And also maybe a question to you. In some cases, we see these gray lines along the borders. Is that a soil type or no soil present? Is it the underlying layer being shown or something?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, basically the layer shown as gray is like I'm selecting now, is the layer that is not unclassified in the WRB system. So this, again, we have different cases of this. Sometimes it is no soil, it is rock outcrops, for example. Or like in this case from Thailand, we see it is classified and named as slope complex. So no clear WRB classification.
Mm-hmm.
If we check our layer, basically, here we have in the name, we have a category called no data. Okay, where is it? Yeah, we have no data category where there was no data in the original maps at all, like in Vietnam, so probably it's not soil. Then we have some cases like rock outcroppings. Yeah, rock outcrops from different countries. Then we have slope complexes from Thailand. We also have water bodies. We also have rock outcrops and glaciers in India, in Himalayas, obviously. We also have mangroves in Bangladesh. Again, we have sometimes additional information to describe what that is, even if reference soil group is not indicated, then in the name we can understand what that was. And sometimes we also have some additional information in other classifications like rock outcrops, rock mountains, and so on to understand what that was, why this particular piece is not classified WRB system. So some of them are not soil, some of them are some slope complexes, for example, so probably soils, but not clearly classified in WRB. Like here is a water body, probably the gray area. Yes, this is a water body. Here, for example, we see like also sharp difference. The delta of Mekong River in Vietnam is quite separated from the rest. So maybe this is indeed like that, or maybe it comes in terms of different classifications, yeah. So from the Vietnam side, we see delta classified as fluvial lake. Then on the north of the border, we can see that there are different classifications there, including lake cambisols, including lake acrisols, and Dumbri glacials. So this obviously comes from different map sources. Yeah, how detailed was the description of these soils along the valley of Mekong River. While on the other hand, if we compare here along the border, we will have acrosol splintic and acrosol glaic. So the reference soil group is matching here perfectly, but the qualifiers were selected differently.
So I think maybe let's say a few low-hanging fruits, but I will ask Erica also for her opinion. In the other atlases, we have depicted bare rock outcrops as leptosols, so nudolithic leptosols.
Just
So
put it to the chat, the same.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. The chat seems as oh yeah, sorry. Yes,
that's okay.
You'd already scrolled through the chat. Yes. So indeed, so I think that's a very easy rule to apply. We for people who haven't provided data, we ask you to assign bare rock outcrops as leptosols, nudolithic, and Kostian can convert the data that he has received already into that. As regards to mangroves, we would have them as fluvisols, thionic, no, fluvisols, salty, saline fluvisols.
Or yeah, or fluvic glacials. I think we should check what most countries put for such areas. I'm sure there are many areas or vast areas of that. So maybe we should come up with two options and try to find out which one is matching, but not to classify them in 10 different ways.
Yes, I agree. So let's talk about in future. Then the mangrove areas are shown as a distinctive fluvisols. Because they will show the layer.
Well, basically I'm showing the area in Bangladesh, the Sundarban area, mangroves basically. And if we see the matching nearby part from India, then actually we don't see this mangroves part here at all on the map. So the map actually ends here with Eric Cambisols, and probably the mangroves are here beyond, closer to the water. They are not classified anyhow.
That should be easy. If it's not classified, I think we just choose one of the options that we decide about those areas.
Yeah, I think it's basically that only area that we received specifically signed for mangroves. Well, I don't know if we have in any other country these mangroves areas. And maybe this country can suggest also how they classified it. And also maybe we can discuss with Thailand about the slope complexes, because you see here on the map the gray areas, they are quite large area. Yeah, Vietnam is explaining that on Vietnam map the no data are rocky mountains, rivers, streams and lakes. So this is basically no soil.
Yeah. So we will classify obviously the rivers and lakes should be covered by, let's say, another layer, another geographic layer. We can indicate it already, but we will overlay a water body layer on top of this, so that should address, let's say, most of these issues. Yes, and the Rocky Mountains, as I said, will become leptosols for the time being. Streams, they're water bodies. So perhaps what we do is maybe sort of systematically look at the borders. Let's say on I don't know. Let's start on the west. I'm not sure what your westernmost boundary is, and maybe just raise some issues where we ask the country representatives maybe to either take note or to try to explain what let's say the main issues are behind the differences. Erica, I think it's tremendously reassuring, at least when we have the matching reference group. What is there a simple template that we can come up with, let's say, over the next few days, so that we can ask people to justify, not to justify, but to explain the logic behind the selection of a certain qualifier?
Sorry, I was muted. I think we did that before. I think what we should do to select the mismatches, and then maybe I can ask question why they choose the different reference groups. So there might be always a specific question. So I think I can ask specific questions, and then we can solve it quite easy. But I don't know how to do that. If we do it in written, that question or the countries send me the mismatching soil groups, or when we go through the regions, we pick out the problematic parts, and it might be useful for everybody to listen to the questions. So it's up to the organizers how we do it. But the examples that were already mentioned, some of them seem to be very easy to resolve. Yeah. For example, there was a case when the qualifier was feral leak on one side, district on the other side. Most of the feral leaks are district at the same time. So at least most of them. So I think we can always ask simple questions to decide, and the countries should be flexible to agree on the problematic questions. But only the methodology should be decided, whether it's in Britain, that questionable reference groups or qualifiers are listed together where which they are mismatching, and I can ask the specific question to decide. Was it clear what I tried to say?
Yeah, it's very clear. And I think just one more observation as well is because looking at the example that Kostya was just showing there, it's clear that the spatial representation on one side of the border is higher than on the other side of the border. So because that's simply potentially reflecting maybe a more modern survey approach or different underlying scale in data, which is of course very difficult to correct without obviously additional effort. And so there may be cases where we will have to put a disclaimer where you know that the abrupt changes at the borders reflect different scale of input data or different focus to the soil survey. So I think that will be, let's say, difficult to address. But when we see that maybe something like this, where it's based on an apparent hydrological network, that you can see that there's a sort of a river system going through there, whether it's possible to add some additional data sources that can at least maybe maintain a coherent nature across that region. That's something that we need to think about. Yeah. Okay. So just I'm also trying to get used to the color scheme of the legend.
They're random colors.
Yes. Okay.
Kostya, sorry, is it the plan that it will be random, or are we coming up with a logic or match the other atlases? I hope we will match the other atlases.
Yes, indeed. That's okay. That's the plan. I think probably I haven't communicated to Kostya the layer file that we tend to use with the color scheme for the reference groups, so that we can do. But I was going to suggest that we spend some time now looking at maybe at first of all as I said, in a systematic way the major discrepancies between the borders, so just to get some discussion going.
Okay, so shall we start from the west? I put in the beginning the west, the border with India and Bangladesh, where we started. Shall we stop here or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, as I showed briefly, and as you, Arvin, pointed out very well, there is quite more detail on the Bangladesh map. So we see some matching features here in terms of cambisols from India and cambisols distigrade from Bangladesh. This part is matching, but we see that in Bangladesh further, more to the south, the soil is turning into not cambisols anymore, but glacisols eutric, while on Indian side it stays as cambisol.
What is the qualifier of the cambisol?
No qualifier given. There is given also other classifications, typic, haplosteps.
Typic?
Plus depths, if you can see on the right side.
Septisol.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a cambisol. Okay. Yeah. And on the other side, it's glycol.
Yeah, it is glycol.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically, we are talking about glycol, utric, reductic gallic. All the colors here. Yeah, this one.
Reductic. Okay. Okay, it's a difficult one because on one side of the border, it is just an absolute reduced hydromorphic soil. And on the other side, there is nothing suggesting that there is any groundwater influence. So I think in this case, it needs a local expert who could say if on the other side of the border, are there reducing conditions and hydromorphic features or not?
Yeah, but basically
it's not a simple question. So it's not only classification, it's a local expert knowledge of the soil. So we need that answer from the local soil scientists. Otherwise we cannot resolve it.
Yeah, and Bangladesh, like the whole country, is mostly that river valley.
Yeah.
Quite distinct thing. So that's probably where all the water part comes from. So the adjacent Indian areas might have similar conditions, but maybe because the map of India was not that detailed scale, that part was not, categorized in this way. So we see India, the cambisols, they go away from all around the eastern part of the country.
So maybe a glaic cambisol instead of the glycol, but it seems like a huge polygon on the right side of the border. So
basically, we have also here additional classification from Bangladesh explaining what it was. Was non-calcareous dark gray floodplain soils. So what they did was they have the native classification, like non-calcareous dark gray floodplain soils, and we can also examine their conversion table. That first it was converted to USDA soil taxonomy, and then from that it was converted to WRB.
Yeah, the problem with soil taxonomy is that it's not that they don't have an alternative or a parallel with the fluvisols and not with the glycols. So in this case, even soil taxonomy is not very helpful. So sometimes in the entire long name, the fluvic or the glyc nature may not come up. I think we should ask the Bangladesh colleagues if closer to the border, they still have this very highly hydromorphic feature, or they can, I don't know. So I think local knowledge is absolutely important. Yeah. So the gray suggests that there are really hydromorphic features, whether it's current and they are still reduced. I think it's only the country expert who can answer the question.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm Manjurullah from Bangladesh.
Hi.
I'd like to, my name. I'd like to say that Bangladesh soils, where you identified that the glyc cambisol. Actually, the soils are almost young with hydromorphic feature is there, and soil is soil has not been formed and cambic B horizon is available there. As per our reconnaissance soil survey data, the cambic B horizon is prominent there in that case, and side by side they are submerged for some times, and so that mottles formed there, and so that is why the soils should be termed as cambisols due to its presence of cambic B horizon. And the mottling phenomena, the soils should termed as glaic cambisols. I think it is clear to you that why this is called glaic cambisols.
Well, thanks, Nazarul. But what we see is that it's called calcary glacials, actually.
Okay. Just to make a little bit of clarification.
Okay.
If the soil is at the same time hydromorphic, having the mottles and having groundwater influence and a cambic horizon, then the question is how shallow the glaic features and how expressed the glaic features are, because glacials key out before the cambisols. So if it's a cambisol, then the glaic features should not be that prominent, or they should be deeper, or just an inherited feature from the past, and reducing conditions are not there anymore. So,
okay.
But if you say that these features are not so prominent and they are not so close to the surface, then the cambisol would be a good solution and match the other side of the border. And maybe we can ask the other colleagues whether they have any hydromorphic features, because if they can go with the glaic cambisol, that would be a great solution on both sides.
Okay.
Because they have typic, if I understand. In India, there is typic.
Typic.
So if they can, and actually typic is not existing anyway. So we don't have anything like typic. It should be haplic. But if we change the haplic, the typic to glaic, then if both sides are glaic cambisol, then we solve this problem.
Actually, the side of Bangladesh is mixed. Glacial and cambisol is there actually, and there is some imperfectly drained soils, and that soils can be termed as cambisols, because the hydromorphic phenomena is persist there for some period, not for long term, and glacials consist the hydromorphic phenomena for long term. It maybe more than 3 months. And in highland area, where the drainage condition peoples are imperfectly drained, only below 15 days, and glaic properties develop there for this region.
Okay. So this glaic cambisol would be a good solution. Then the only question is, since as I see properly, it's a huge polygon. The question is if you want to change the entire polygon from glaisol to cambisol. So then it's another mapping question again. Do you understand my point? So the polygon, which is at the border, it seems to be a huge polygon. Now we change the name of the polygon to match the other side of the border, but it's a huge polygon. The question is, are we changing this entire polygon, or you wish to change only some part which is closer to the border? I don't know if you want to split that polygon or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not that big.
In that case, I will have to study the maps of India border to the Bangladesh, and then I will be able to assess the mapping unit in this connection.
Okay.
So
I need to study the map. I need to study the map of India, WRB map of India, so that I could decide.
Okay, so we come back to this question later.
Okay.
Kostya, I don't know if it's possible to stop sharing just for a moment. Screen.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Let me just try. So should see just out of interest the Google Maps screen for the area. Yes. So we're looking at the obviously the pediment region coming off the Himalayas, and at least the landscapes in this region, they look pretty consistent. So we can obviously see that there's detail in there. So one would imagine that within this region there are maybe small variations, and we can see quite clearly here I think the river systems that were being depicted on the Bangladeshi data set. But just looking at, let's say, the broad sort of landscape patterns in there, one would suggest that actually the soils across the border here should be very similar. No, we're not looking at any major topographic feature, or for example, if we can imagine that maybe around this river system that maybe the pH or something could be different if the parent material is different, but specifically on the border, it looks like the landforms and the landscape are pretty similar. So maybe that's something to consider as well. Okay, I give the screen back to you, Kostya.
Okay. So basically on the other side, here we see the same match between Bangladesh and India again. And then we go to Myanmar. And when we go to Myanmar, here at the border, we have also certain matching features. Again, with cambisols. Oh no, this is alisols. No, which one? Yes, cambisols. Okay, so we have cambisols, district folic cambisols on India side. And on Myanmar, we have a big polygon with less details, also with cambisols ferralic. So there is a match, but there is more detailed polygons from India. And then when we move to the south from here, then soils in Myanmar change here to rhodic feral soil, while on India's side they stay as cambisols. Here we have also Bangladesh, also with cambisols. So this is this turn to feral soils, a little bit sharp here in Myanmar. And in the north, yes, in the north again, the border is cambisols, which is matching well with India. So there are cambisols in border of Myanmar, and there are feral soils inside the territory. And when we move from Myanmar to Thailand, then we encounter this issue of slope complexes. Well, on Myanmar side, we have cambisols and feral soils. On the side of Thailand, we have this whole huge polygon not classified in WRB, but identified as slope complexes. Well, inside this slope complex, you have some soils that are classified, the smaller polygons. They are classified as skeletic acrisols. So this is also a bit different from what you see in Myanmar across the border. So maybe there is a question to Thailand, like how can we classify these slope complexes? What is the nature of this area? Are there any thoughts about this issue?
May I ask you some question?
Yes.
Yes. What do you think about in this area that slope is more than 35%, and we did not finish the soil survey in that area yet? And what your suggestion for this case? And what do you think? Thank you.
Thank you. So Eric, Arvin, what do you think? How we can help Thailand colleagues to classify this area if the soil survey is not completed yet? Maybe you have some underlying information.
Can you repeat once again, please?
So there is this large area in Thailand which is classified as slope complexes.
Mm-hmm.
And Thailand colleagues are telling us that the soil survey is not completed there yet. Mm-hmm. But the slopes are very, very high there, like 35%. That's why they put it as a distinct land type slope complex. So what can we suggest to them how to classify it, because they are not sure, because there is not complete information about this area from the soil survey yet. This is a very big area that also borders Myanmar, for example, other countries.
So hopefully this will be one of the discussions on Friday, but as we said in the beginning of the process, that obviously we cannot leave countries empty. And one therefore could consider that this part of Thailand is almost like an empty, as you say, unsurveyed region. And for that we have two default approaches. One is to use the Harmonized World Soils Database, and to look at the, let's say, the dominant soil type that is shown there. The other approach is to use, let's say, to look at maybe the predictions that are made using the soil grids data set of ISRIC, where they, let's say, give a probability of a number of reference groups occurring in that region, and that we can look in a bit more detail to see what would be a, let's say, a suitable classification for that part. So there is a background, a backstop approach for unclassified areas. And maybe we can have a look to see with both approaches what they give us, and then we can let the people in Thailand to decide what would be a more appropriate classification. I see the hand is up from Thai colleagues.
Yeah, Alan.
Yeah,
Alan. Even I can say that in Thailand we did not finish in the mountainous area yet. It's not the survey in the mountainous area yet. But I think that we can adjust or we can find the solution in terms of the WRB in the slope complex. That maybe I can give some word look like acrysol or cabisol, something like that. But okay, I think that I will send you in the next time for the slope complex area. And another problem is the area that border with the Cambodia, that we say that is a rock outcrop. Rock outcrop. That means this area is consists of the rock. The rock. No, in the right hand side.
The right hand side here.
No.
This looks like a river.
Down. Okay, down. Okay, allow here. Here. Okay. Now this is a rock outcrop. And what you think about the WRB system that we can give in this area, which consists of the rock? No, down.
This is water. Yeah. Well, I think we discussed before that rock outcrops classify as nudilitic,
or lithic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If it is absolutely bare rock, then it's nudilitic. If there is a little bit of soil formation, it's lithic. So I think it's you have to think about it which ones. But is it just absolutely rock, or you have also some coarse fragmented soils like regosols, and they can be also lithic regosols. So do you have patterns that you want to distinguish, and maybe based on a digital soil mapping approach, we can distinguish even based on elevation or some satellite photographs between regosols and leptosols, or you want to keep it. I think it's a huge area, so it would be strange to have one huge polygon.
Yeah. I will try to give maybe a lithoso, something like that. Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you have looked at the old FAO map. Perhaps that's also helpful. And maybe the soil grid, which is, I don't trust too much the soil grid, but maybe in case of leptosols, might be not bad, because that's considering the outcrops and slope perhaps, which is the driving factor here for soil formation.
Okay. Thank you, Ulrika. That I will try to change from the slope complex into the WRB system with the lithoso or something like that. Okay. Thank you, Ulrika and Alan. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, and on the other hand,
get some information. Hello.
Yeah, please. Yeah, Marcus.
Hello?
Please.
Yeah. Can I provide some comment about the soil for colleagues from Thailand? Could be good to see the landform of the area, and then overlay with the soil geology to see the parent material of the soil. So I will say that we can use parent material as reference, and then followed by the landform of the area to see what the main factor control the formation of the soil there. So if we can divide it, the major parent material of the area around the very big complex soil, we already know the slope is 35%. Yeah, I think quite good to see the soil with the slope, and then we compare what the parent material there. Are they all the material is similar or different? So once we get the different of parent material, and we can try to see reference from the other area with have the same parent material and have the same landform, so we can extrapolate the soil from the other area which has the same parent material and also have the same landform. So I think this might help to solve the complex for the Thailand. Otherwise, we cannot do anything because yeah, quite complex if we go into the further detail, and we know the map will be produced for the scale 1 million, so quite small. So we can generalize for the parent material as well as the soil unit for the case in Thailand. So I think this could be one solution. The next one, if we say for the rock outcrops, I think we don't have to use the leptosol for the soil with the rock outcrops. I will say we can call it for the unit for rock outcrops with miscellaneous. So we can give the definition, the soil there, bare, absolutely bare or rock. And the unit, we don't have to get the name, the soil, if there is no soil there. So otherwise the map will misleading. If someone say, oh yeah, there are some soils there, then in fact, only bare land. So I will suggest to use the rock outcrop for the unit, or just give it the miscellaneous within the map. So that's my comment. Thank you. Keep going on.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. For my idea about the rock outcrop, I agree with you that because that is the soil, but this is only the rock. The rock is between Thai and Cambodia is a sandstone outcrop. That it means it's no soil in front of the rock. It's only rock. It looks like the sandstone outcrop. That it means for my idea is not, we cannot use in terms of the soil in that area. That is my idea. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, that's why I'm suggesting to just use the miscellaneous for the unit for the rock outcrop, because there is no soil there. But we can get any explanation to indicate that what we call for miscellaneous is the rock outcrop.
Yeah, it look like is a miscellaneous. It look like in terms of we use a water body, something like that. That is not soil. It is a water body, like this, for miscellaneous type.
Christian, can I comment?
Sure, of course.
Okay. If we are using the definitions of the WRB, then you have to accept that nudilitic leptosol means bare rock. And in the WRB, every surface is classified. So the meaning of nudilitic leptosol is bare rock. So that's a definition. So I think we cannot go by the definitions if we use the WRB. So if it has to be explained that nudilitic means there is no soil.
Indeed, I was going to just say the same thing. We will actually have three miscellaneous categories: water, obviously, because it's not soil; glaciers, so or permanent ice, and that's it actually. And sea. I mean, even the urban areas we will classify as techno soils, because they are sealed soils or soils with a high presence of human artifacts or disturbed soils. So the logic will apply also to the urban areas. And indeed, it's I think the logic behind the nudilithic leptosol classifier is the fact that even at a microscopic layer level, you may find, let's say, the traces of soil formation even on bare rock. So in that case, we will apply the well, the lithic or the nudolithic classifier, as Eric explained. But I think Marcus made another good point, which I think I'd like to thank him for bringing up. Indeed, because the actual scale of the maps that we will be displaying will be at 1 to 3 million. So indeed, small features will not really be as evident as maybe they are made to look at with Kostya zooming into detail. So what I think with some small discrepancies like this, I think we will have to live with. But what we want to try and avoid in particular is this big differences in reference groups at the borders, because these will show up as very contrasting colors. And then within these reference groups, as much as possible, to agree on the qualifier between them. Okay. And I think in this age of sort of data sharing, one of the, let's say, considerations that we could think about would be to make the eventual, let's say, layer available as something that could be shown or shared on something like Google Earth or Google Maps or something like this, whatever the platforms that we want to show. And of course, once we start making that sort of distinction available, people will start asking, well, why is there a difference in the soil type here when the underlying, let's say, satellite imagery or ortho photographs or whatever doesn't show that? So I think the drive for us at least should be as much as possible consistency on the reference group, and where possible agreement on the qualifier, and then on a, let's say, a third level, if it's possible to easily add some additional soil detail. And I'm thinking more about the river network and things like this, then that's something that we should also try to explore. Okay.
Just one thing, Arvin, that you reminded me of is that in most cases we have these rock outcrops, yeah, that we'll probably classify. But in one case in India, we have glaciers and rock outcrops.
Yes, yes.
So will we show them as glaciers eventually or not? Because they are like joint class in the high mountains.
That's a very good question. Ideally,
any relation with elevation?
Yes, I was going to.
Yeah, these are obviously high mountains.
Yeah, I mean between the rock outcrops and the glaciers. So.
Is that the region that you're showing now? Is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps here also, but Arvin suggested that we use Google Earth and see where really glaciers appear, and maybe we don't follow only the map, but also some very good satellite images.
Yeah.
And use some digital soil mapping approaches to make difference between outcrop and glaciers.
Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion. Indeed, we can see very well now where the real ice is. Okay, then let's go back to Southeast Asia. If we continue to talk about Thailand, then here we have a lot of perfect match of the areas that are classified as acrisols across the border, acrisols from Thailand and acrisols from Cambodia. There is even matching qualifiers. First qualifier Glake, I see. So there is some perfect match. Then the question will be here again at this left side. because mostly in Thailand, where we see this around these slope complexes that maybe our colleagues will classify, mostly these are acrisols there from the Thailand side. But from the Myanmar side, these are all feral sols. There is this big bright purple polygon of feral sols. So then if we eventually classify the slope complexes, and maybe most of them will be acrisols, then across the border we will have feral sols from Myanmar. And basically this is, the most prominent soil type in Myanmar are these feral sols that we do not find across the border in the nearby countries, like here in India or on that side in Thailand. So I don't know if we need to also see into this. What do you think?
I don't know if Tu from Myanmar has any thoughts or would like to think or send us in the chat maybe something, some understanding of whether these are really ferrosols or are they acrisols? I don't know, Erica, would you be able to give a very quick, let's say,
yes,
distinction?
If you have feral soils, those are very, very, very low activity soils, and most of the time they don't have too much profile differentiation. If you have an acrisol, you have a clay accumulation horizon and more distinct horizonation, and a little bit higher cation exchange capacity. So I think this is the question, how much you know about the properties of these soils.
Also, there are acrisols ferric here in
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Then perhaps they are quite similar. Maybe then think about if you see more, if you remember more horizonation, then I would go for the ferric acrisol. If they are very kind of homogeneous, very low activity clay soils, then they somehow have to agree. But the ferric suggests that the two soils are quite similar. So I think it is, most probably they have the characteristics of both reference groups, but one has more characteristic for the feral soils with the very low activity, very low cation exchange capacity. So I think the two countries should agree about the properties, the major properties, or the more distinct properties.
Okay, so we'll leave it for discussion, I guess, between Myanmar and Thailand, right?
So, maybe again, Kostyan, if you just stop sharing for just for a second. So maybe just to give people maybe just a sense. So I hope now that maybe you can see the soil grids data set. So again, I'm not saying that this is a definitive, let's say, assessment of the soil type. It's a prediction, but if we do explore this, so let's click on one of these brown areas. So you can see actually that, let's say, the algorithm that's being used here is giving, let's say, a 25% probability that they're acrisols with a 23% probability that they're cambisols. and only a 10% probability that they're ferrosols. So we can see, as Erica was saying, that the characteristics that you have is cambisols and ferrosols. They don't show much horizon development, and as Erica said, you have the increased clay in the subsoil for the acrisols. But let's say on the balance of this algorithm, that these dark brown regions are indeed acrisols predominantly. But if we explore maybe these light colored areas, let's see. So again, we're getting the same sort of groupings of soils: cambisols, acrisols, ferrosols, now with a slightly higher probability towards cambisol. So maybe this is the reason why we're getting maybe the more of the ferrosols occurring on the Myanmar side. But again, I stress very much that these are, let's say predictions. So maybe they are ferric, let's say, in their nature, and obviously they're either quite coarse in their texture, probably, and in some cases maybe we see some clay movements within the profile. So I don't know. So I'm just saying that maybe this sort of the soil grids may help people understand maybe what let's say the differentiation between these large areas are, and may help you to assign, let's say, the correct class as you perceive it. But we can see obviously that here even the soil grids is putting a big, let's say, weight towards the fact that they're more likely to be acrisols, but there are cambisols within there which may be interpreted as ferrosols in the way that different soil classifications look at different types of soil. Okay, so maybe just a reflection there to help maybe what people think about. And maybe while we're at it, so we can see, for example, here what let's say the prediction is for glacials in the delta of the Mekong. And actually they're showing them mostly as fluvisols, but there are again glacials present in the probability. So if people take this as with the sort of eyes wide open, it may help you understand maybe the differences between your neighboring countries. Okay, I'll give it back to you, Kostin.
Okay. Here is my screen again. Okay, so another feature when we move from Thailand to Laos, we can see that here is a lot of agreement in terms of acrisols on both sides of the border. And then in Thailand, we have this prominent area at the border, the green one, that is classified as plintosols. While on the other side, on Laos, we have a very detailed map with lots of different reference groups, but mostly not plintosols. Okay, there are quite a lot of them. There are alisols, acrisols, water bodies, cambisols. There is like a big mosaic of different soils there in Laos. But I don't see actually plintosols around them, so there's a little bit of...
Are there plenty qualifiers among those soils in Laos?
Yeah, well, there is, as you can see, a huge mosaic. So let's maybe zoom in. Okay, this, no, not water bodies, not water bodies. Here, ferric haploic alisols, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Here they are repeating along the border, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Skeletic haploic acrisols, also
Mm-hmm.
the purple ones.
Mm-hmm.
Hyperdistrict haploic alisols. Some glazols, but very small polygons.
Mm-hmm.
The green ones. Water bodies, water bodies, water bodies, water bodies. Yeah, so ferric haploic ambisols.
First of all, there is a scale problem, obviously. So for that, I don't think I can say much too. So I think that should be discussed regardless of the classification. But I think sometimes the ferric it's quite similar to the plintic nature. So sometimes if people don't have much experience with the plintic horizon, they interpret it as a ferric because they can be kind of pisolytic, not a continuous plintite hard rock, but kind of pisolytic. And it's even often considered as skeletic because those ferric nodules look like sometimes like gravel. So I don't know if it was the case or not, because the landscape perhaps is similar. So wherever plintosols are on the other side of the border, most probably they are not high mountains on the other side. So it would be nice to see the Google Earth image as well and see how much difference is in the landscape. But for the plintosols, you need a plintic horizon in shallow depths. So I think both countries should think it through whether that big polygon of plintosols is really the entire polygon plintosol, or are there just plintic other reference groups? And Laos should consider to revise some of the ferric qualifiers if they were plintites and are they plintic? So when it is skeletic as a qualifier, is anybody here from Laos? Okay, so the skeletic simply might be the pisolytic plintite. If it is a low lying area. But it has to be discussed with the local soil scientists, which we can do on a one-to-one basis or in a three-party discussion with the two countries.
Okay.
So maybe Kostian, again,
Sure.
if you just stop sharing for a second.
Some Google Earth.
Erika, actually, we have a participant from Laos. It's Sai Song Kam that I see him connected to the meeting. So, Sai Song Kam, I'm asking you to please unmute yourself. You can talk. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So sorry, I just came. I think that in case of Laos that that we just finished for the classification WRB. So in fact we will have the expert from FAO to check all the data from this.
Mm-hmm. Did you take part in the mapping? do you remember wherever you have these soils which are not plinto soils, but you have a ferric qualifier and you also have the skeletic. Is the skeletic from rock, or are those just coarse rounded nodules, or so what were those? Arvin, can you point where we are? I mean on the map.
I think we're looking at this region here, no?
So I think the best way that maybe, yes, you know that it's very new for Laos, the WRB classification. I think that is the good point to improve this one if from the FAO side can consider or select some point that we need to modify or some point that we need to update one, and then we can discuss more detail in local soil expert and also by support from your side or something. I think is quite better, because that in this moment that only me, because I am not a soil expert in here, you know, it's the one problem that the soil expert in some that they working in field, so they cannot attend. Normally the we come is well joy, but he doesn't attend today. So another the thing from Laos that we are going to hire the expert from FAO is the short term support by the FAO to see the whole system of WRB, because this map based on the FAO UNESCO 1990. So that's why it can be some point that we need to adapt it.
Okay. So just to confirm, Kostian, before you were showing this border region here, yes?
Yes. This region between Thailand and Laos, yes.
Yeah. Because so unlike the previous example where we were looking at a very similar landscape, let's say on the border of Bangladesh and India. So here we can see actually that in reality there is quite a marked difference in the landscapes on either side of the Mekong River. So in this case, perhaps there is actually a strong justification for the big difference in soil type, because we see very marked changes in the landscape with more mountains to the north and maybe I don't know, a lowland area maybe with some sort of low hills and terraces on the south side. So in this case, perhaps I think there's more evidence to suggest that the differences either side of the border are actually real. So that's also a possibility.
Yeah. Arvin, can you also move to the border between Laos and Vietnam to the east? Just because the next feature that I would show on the map is the one. Yeah, here we clearly see the difference. Yeah. But if you move the screen to the east, the border between Laos and Vietnam.
Yeah.
No, to the right. Yeah, here. Okay, so between Laos and Vietnam, right in the middle. Yeah, basically.
I can stop sharing for a while, then we can look at the soils and come back if needs be.
Yeah, but yeah, it looks similar. Yeah, we can just look at the soils now. Again, because the Laos map, I think, is very detailed. And when we compare with Vietnam, again, there is a very good match of acrisols on both sides. But also on Laos map, there are very prominent areas of alisols that also come to the border, including this one, hyperdistrict plintic alisols, and so on. And ferric haplik alisols. So there are actually a lot of alisols in Laos. But in Vietnam, this is all classified as acrisols. So I don't know if it's the matter of detail of the map, or we need to discuss anything here. What do you think, Erika? Basically, acrisols are matching on both sides very well. It's just more detail in Laos with alisols being added as a very prominent soil type, which is not continuing then in Vietnam.
Right. I think it's not only a question of scale, but alisols and acrisols differ quite a lot in terms of high activity clay or low activity clay. So I don't think that at the border there is a change in the status of weathering, because acrisols are highly weathered soils and alisols are high activity clays with less weathering nature. So I think we should look at perhaps some of the, if they have some data for the soils, it would be nice to see whether those alisols are really high activity soils, high activity clay soils in the clay accumulation horizon.
So I think in this case, what's interesting, and maybe this is something that's general to many situations, is that obviously on the border, there is actually a soil body, pedon, for want of a better word, has been identified, you know, and so the question is maybe for countries to look at what separates this then from the other acrisols that are maybe closer to the coast. So are the characteristics of the polygon that Kostya has identified now significantly different from the rest of the region? So actually, what is that polygon you've just identified? The one on the border on the.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to this one. So, for example, this is district haplik acrisols. If we come closer to the border, we will add skeletic haplik acrisols. Basically, they all are humecleptic acrisols. District haplik acrisols.
So the major difference is whether they are highly weathered or not so highly weathered soils on the two sides of the border.
Yeah, mostly they are all haplik acrisols, and there is the second qualifier is different from different polygons in Vietnam side. It can be isoskeletic, isodistrict, isoarenic. And okay, let's see also acrisols on Laos side. They are also haplik, hyperdistrict. And when we look at these alisols, we see ferric haplik alisols on Laos side. Different kinds of haplik alisols. And here acrisols on both sides. Haplik skeletic and leptic humic.
Did you just say district acrisols?
Yeah, there certainly were district acrisols.
It's not existing. We don't have district acrisols because it's a default. They should find another qualifier. It can be hyperdistrict.
Yeah, hyperdistrict, you're right.
Which is a supplementary qualifier, but I would avoid that and I would choose another one because it's a default that acrisols are district. So maybe they can come up with a different qualifier.
Okay, basically in Vietnam, we have certain cases where the second qualifier is district for agri-soils.
Yeah, it's not correct. So maybe at the end we should go through also all qualifiers and see if there is anything which is not correct. I mean, which is not existing as a combination with the reference group.
Okay. And here also. Yeah. Okay, so we know that there is this question of
I think we should go, we should leave this discussion because maybe not everybody is interested, but I think only the principle is that people might be interested in. So if we have a question between agri-soils and elly-soils, the major differences between the two is that elly-soils are high activity clays in the clay accumulation horizon, while agri-soils are low activity soils, which means that agri-soils have mostly kaolinite as dominant clay, and the elly-soils have less kaolinite and other clays are dominating. So I think in principle, countries who have this problem should think about it, and we should do it on a dialogue basis between those countries. But this is the principle, and maybe we should have a small group discussion with them. But if it's occurring in other countries, this is the way to think about it. In the chat, I saw another question about water bodies. Can I answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so it was a question, what is the situation if there is a water body, if we consider those water or soil? We have this subaquatic qualifier, which means that if there is a water cover on any surface which is less than 2 meters in depth, then we don't consider it as a water body, but we have it's mostly the glycols, but we can use then the subaquatic. This is just the answer. I don't think we have many of such situations, but it is just the answer to the colleague from Cambodia. So if the water body is less than 2 meters deep, it's a soil of a certain reference group with a subaquatic qualifier. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so we're moving south. Overall, there is a very good match between Vietnam and Cambodia. And then we come to this area that Arvin was showing, the Mekong Delta. So that you see the delta itself is very distinct from the river valley. There is this sharp border right by the border of the country. So maybe that's a real feature, or maybe it somehow needs to be addressed. Let's see. So on the Vietnam side in the delta, we have fluvisols, haplocutric fluvisols. Then in the north of Cambodian side, in the river valley, we have water bodies. We have clay cambisols. We have umbric clay sols. And again, clay cambisols, but we don't have fluvisols. I guess, yeah, here we have a little bit of fluvisols also. But yeah, eutric fluvisols right near the river. Yeah, but the broader valley is classified by this as glacisols or cambisols, while in Vietnam, the whole delta is classified as fluvisols. And apart from the valley of the river itself, in Cambodia, we have clay acrisols that kind of sharply come into the fluvisols of the delta. So this is our picture here. And the question is, like, should we have here, for example, is a clear also clear transition from from acrisols to the delta to the fluvisols. So probably that's natural because it's not coinciding with the border. So probably this transition is accurate here. A little bit strangely looking is this transition along the valley of the river, because here not the whole valley is classified as fluvisols in Cambodia, but only a small part along the river. So I don't know, Erika, what would you suggest?
I think again we should look at the Google Earth, whether there is a big difference in the landscape. Okay. If those very continuously flooded areas in Vietnam, perhaps it makes sense that they are fluvic, and I don't know what is the situation on the other side. So.
Okay, I will give the screen back to Arvin. Sorry, I'm not launching Google Earth on mine because I'm afraid my computer will collapse.
So indeed, I've been following the let's say Kostian where possible, and of course, what's interesting is that at the border here we do have an area of higher ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, next to the river. But you can see very clearly that either side of this, we're into sort of rice cultivation and low ground with similar sort of landscape, maybe more intensive. I mean, there is a difference at the border, I think, which probably may reflect soil type, but it's probably more in terms of maybe land use intensity. Mm-hmm. Because if I switch to the soil grids, what's interesting is that with they have a tool that you can scroll through different background layers. So we can see here the terrain coming through, and generally, most of the landscape is quite flat. No? Mm-hmm. So one would imagine, therefore, that the soil conditions would be similar.
Okay.
Along this region.
What about anthrosols? If these areas are highly cultivated rice fields, did anthrosol come up at all? And it's a general question also. We already stated that anthrosols are underrepresented, at least they were. I don't know how much change occurred in the maps after this statement, but I imagine that a huge part of the area that we are discussing of the rice cultivation, they might be anthrosols.
Yeah. So I'll give the screen back to Kostian. Maybe just with I'm not forgetting the anthrosol question. We'll come back to that.
Before you leave, Arvin, before you leave this screen, so we can see areas where it's very logical that there should be fluvisols at the edges of those water bodies.
Yes.
So I think, again, maybe some digital soil mapping tools or just simply looking at very carefully these images, I think the countries could decide about some fluvisols or not. And also the anthrosol question, I think it should be considered in areas where there is such intensive rice cultivation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, Kostian, do we have any anthrosols at all in the table that you've received?
We do have anthrosols, but not here. not in this area. So now I put bright red color on anthrosols. In general, there are very few. If we try to find them, let me try to.
I give the screen back to you if you want to share.
Yeah, just let me try to find those anthrosols because there are very few in what we received. Wait, what's going on? This one. Table. Okay, so anthrosols. Anthrosols, we have, okay, one polygon in Armenia, we have anthrosols in Japan, one polygon, and we have in Azerbaijan and in Bangladesh. Okay, so let's go to Bangladesh. So anthrosols I now put as bright red color. And if we look at Bangladesh, they should be somewhere here. Yeah, okay, they are now selected as yellow. So these are basically the settlements. The settlements in Bangladesh, the cities, I guess were classified with as anthrosols. I don't know if they should be.
But those should be technosols, not anthrosols.
Yeah, but I think these are clearly cities. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so here, okay, now we can also try with Japan. Okay, so in Japan we have some larger areas here. Sorry, my computer is a bit slow.
So maybe while we're waiting then, so for the misclassification of anthrosols and technosols in Bangladesh, I think there are two approaches that I was thinking about this, because one was that we have at our disposal a number of global data sets in relation to surface water features and urban areas. And so my suggestion was that eventually we would apply the habitat, the dwellings layer as technicals as a final or penultimate layer within the atlas spread, so that we are consistent definition of urban layers across the map. And the same for the surface water bodies. So the actual hydrological network and rivers and lakes would be identified through through another product rather than the soil. And so in that case, I think the misclassification in Bangladesh can be addressed that way, and then will be consistent as well throughout the atlas coverage. Okay. Are you back online, Kostya?
Yeah, almost. I stopped sharing because to help out my computer a little bit. So yeah, I can start sharing now. So we're here in Japan, and yellow selected areas are anthrosols in Japan. So we see they are not the cities. No, the cities are left out as far as I see as gray. So these are quite isolated polygons here. I don't know if colleagues from Japan can comment what kind of areas were classified as anthrosols. Also in Japan we have a very, very detailed map. See all these very tiny polygons with anthrosols.
Most probably those are the rice fields.
Yeah, you see it's very detailed. And basically in Asia we don't have any more cases of anthrosols except for Japan and Bangladesh. Only in Eurasia we have some other cases.
I think we should deal with this. It would be really very very bad if anthrosols would not occur in Asia, only in 2 countries.
So I guess mostly that is because the work was mostly done on reclassifying the previous maps rather than overlaying with some land uses or something. So that's why maybe it was difficult in many cases to single out anthrosols, because that's also
absolutely. But I don't think we can leave it like this. So, Arvind, do you agree?
So I think we have predominantly 2 types of land uses that would potentially give rise to anthrosols. No, so we have the rice cultivation areas in the more humid regions, and then we have the terraces on the more steeper grounds, maybe on the sort of the Himalayan arc, where there's been a long-term improvement there, where we would see the potential case for anthrosols in particular. It's just, I see that there are a couple of questions in the chat. So indeed from Cambodia, there's a question about the anthrosols with long and intensive agricultural use. Can you please explain how long?
Can I add something to it? Not necessarily all long-term agricultural land, long-term used agricultural lands are anthrosols, but there should be a prominent change, and we discussed the diagnostic horizons that are related to the anthrosols. So fortunately, not all agricultural lands we have to change, but I think the rice fields have a very great chance, and also the terraces, as Arvind said. So many of them are related to long-term irrigation or the paddy cultivation or the terraces. So I don't think the rest we should go into big details because we have to know more data to distinguish other diagnostic horizons. But the terraces and the long-term rice fields have a great potential to satisfy those diagnostic horizons that are related to anthrosols.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, when we were in Korea, we discussed it in great big details. We saw that very nice anthrosol. And I think huge parts of Asia should have similar features under rice cultivation. But is there a general agreement that we should not leave the anthrosols out from this map? I think they should be reclassified in areas where it's quite obvious that there are anthrosols.
Could you show the map in Cambodia, please?
Yeah, okay, moving there.
So we have the red, right? The red color, which is anthrosol we are talking about, right?
No. And yeah, I checked the attribute table. So anthrosols we have only in Japan and in Bangladesh and it's gone again.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Japan on the chat explaining that anthrosols in Japan is for paddy rice fields.
Yes.
Iron and manganese moved from surface horizon to subsurface horizon and accumulated by irrigation water. Yeah, you see anthrosols we have in Mongolia, by the way. Let's check also Bangladesh, Japan, Armenia, and Azerbaijan.
Cambodia, yeah.
No, Cambodia, no.
Do we have in Cambodia?
I mean, not on the map. You haven't.
Not on the map. Oh, that's why Erika mentioned about that. Because, you know, like the green color here are the area of the active flood plain. Okay, active flood plain. This area could be like what we call here fluvial or what?
The green area is district glacials, the one that.
Okay, glacial. Okay, district glacial. Yeah, but you know, other other area around it that green area, other area around it that green area, and they are also the rice field. Okay, but they are receiving annual flooding from the rainwater, not from the river water or lake, you know. So the parent materials of those soils surrounding the green color areas are generally the siliceous, you know, materials, huh? Okay, siliceous sandy material, okay, yeah, and they are generally old alluvial, okay, old alluvial. I don't know how to describe in the very different ways, so I just can describe to you the process of the forming, okay. They are generally the old alluvial soil, yeah. And what else? And they have historically, you know, cultivated to rice for centuries, you know, since the Angkorian time, you know, like 10, 11th century, you know, back, you know. So very long history of rice cultivation in that area, yeah.
Just a comment. If you remember, in the key of the WRB, anthrosols key out first. I mean, very soon in the key. And then glycols and fluvisols are quite at the back in the key. So if you have the anthropogenic influence and also the fluvial nature and also the high influence of the hydromorphic features, then this would be the way to decide. So if anthropogenic, it's anthrosol. And it can be a glyc anthrosol or it can be a fluvic anthrosol. But if they satisfy the anthropogenic diagnostic horizons, these are anthrosols.
Okay. So, yeah.
So we give priority to the anthropogenic diagnostic features.
Erika, could you help us with, you know, like writing us a bit of description about, you know, that soil so that we can have a look back at the table of conversion again, you know, and we just want to make sure that, you know, we have a very good correlation between the Crocker, you know, the former soil classification system, the Crocker, and the new classification at the world reference base, okay, that we are using right now, okay? Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand. I think we were dealing with that correlation from the Crocker to the WRB before, but you would like to have description of the anthrosols? That's what you mean?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, there was a presentation which was shared when we had the WRB workshop. There was a presentation on the anthrosols explaining some of the most important diagnostic horizons typical for the paddy cultivation. I hope it's still available. If not, I will send it to Lucretia to share it again.
Okay, yeah. Appreciate that. I think we might receive it then. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Erika. Yeah.
So, Kostya, could you just stop sharing for a second?
Sure.
Okay. So just interestingly to bear in mind that, so we can see very good correlation there between the soil map and the Google Maps view. So we have the Great Lake, but immediately around the lake, we have obviously some sort of natural, semi-natural vegetation type, which is not cultivated for rice. So here it's clear we wouldn't have any anthrosols in this region, but by moving out into the floodplain, we can see much more clearly that it's much more highly intensively cultivated, both to the west of the lake and also to the east of the lake. So some of those pixels that polygons that we were looking at before are clearly not anthrosol. So these regions adjacent to the lake are not, but the ones further into the floodplains could
Can you just stop here and don't move from here? So most probably around the lake, there are seasonal floods.
Yes.
So wherever you don't have the rice cultivation, but you have just this floodplain area, most probably it's a fluvisol, a glyc fluvisol or a whatever fluvisol. But I assume that this area is seasonally flooded.
Yes, you are right. Yeah.
But at the same time, if it is absolutely glyc, it might be a fluvic glycol because glycols key out before the fluvisols. So I think the question is how much they are flooded and how deep the groundwater is, how distinct the glyc features are, and how shallow to the surface. So either fluvic glycols or glyc fluvisols. And then outside the floodplain area, perhaps we have some anthrosols.
This one, you know, we need to know the time of this image, you know, is it real-time image, because the lake is expanding its area during the the rainy season.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, if we have it in during the rainy season, then yeah, we would expect see the large area of the lake, But in the dry season, then it will be much smaller. So then we can tell whether some part of the lake with the light color here can be like the active area of the flood plain as well, But it became flooded during the rainy season. Yeah, and the water recedes, and then after that, the farmers grow rice. They call the receiving rice, Yeah. Yeah. So of course now they are practicing, and the farmers are practicing recession rice in the area surrounding the lake as well. Yeah. That we call the active floodplain, right? Region alluvial soil. Okay, right. Region alluvial soil. Yeah.
I think I was just pointing out that these patterns that we see on this image of the shape of the lake and then the shape of the dark green region around it corresponds very well with the soil information that we have on the map. So it was just an observation to reflect that before we sort of leap in and assign everything as and results, that indeed that there are maybe some care should be taken to preserve, for example, the features that are associated with this dark green.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, it should not be aerosol in that dark green area, right? Yeah, I agree with your point. Yeah, and it further outside of the dark green area, the rice growing area, like the lighter color after the dark green, Yeah, that the rice area. So yeah, if you can consider like aerosol, or but they are very old alluvial soil, Yeah.
I would like to repeat what Arvin said before, how useful these images are, because most of the maps which are now used to convert national soil data to the WRB, so those maps were perhaps made before these high resolution images were available. So I suggest that before finalizing the maps, it's really very good if all countries look at the maps where there are questions to decide about certain reference groups.
Yeah. So I agree with your point also, Erika. Maybe your team could help us with, identify the questions that you want us to follow up, and then we can consider option to follow up your question to improve the accuracy of our map. I think it will be very helpful as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so maybe I can stop sharing, and you can give it back to Kostian.
Arvin, I'm sorry. Do we want to have 15 minutes break?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I see that the break was later, but oh yeah, the break is now indeed. Yes. Yeah.
So we can meet again in 15 minutes.
Yeah, 9:30. Well, at 1/2 Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arvin.
Yes.
At 10 o'clock, I have a class.
Okay. I think that
a few minutes before 10 o'clock, I have to quit and change my whole setting.
Yeah.
An online class.
So because at 10 o'clock anyway, I think we should talk about let's say the other maps and the country profiles. So maybe your input is not so important.
Yeah, that's an interesting part. That's entertainment for me, but I will miss it. Country profile information, I think this is very enjoyable, but I will miss it. But unfortunately, I have to give my class.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll make the most of you for the last half an hour.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
And have a nice break.
Okay then.
Thank you.